to another episode of Me and My Wife and Sports. I'm your host, Fitz, with my lovely co-host, Darcy.
Hi.
All right. We're ready for another episode, and the Olympics is just right around the corner. A couple things about the Olympics that I wanted to mention before we get into our topic for today is congratulations to Snoop Dogg and LeBron James, as well as Simone Biles. Simone and LeBron will be the flag bearers for the Olympics for the U.S. And Snoop Dogg is actually carrying the torch for the Olympics on one of the legs in Paris. So congrats to both.
Hopefully it's a short leg.
Yeah, I think between his weed smoking and running, or who knows, he might be walking it.
Yeah, I'm sure he's walking it. He might be riding in a car.
Right.
He's just holding the torch.
Right. Out the window.
Yeah, right.
We look forward to seeing that. And as most of you might not know, the Olympics actually started on the 24th with the soccer tournaments. So the official opening, though, is the 26th, which is Friday. And hopefully it'll be a great one because it's supposed to be a little bit different than a normal opening. In this case, they're going down the Seine River. So it should be interesting.
Yep, looking forward to it. Something to be on TV, that's for sure. Because ain't nothing on TV right now.
I know it's a sort of hiatus for the sports, unless you're into baseball.
Right.
And a couple other ones that's out there. But today's topic, we're going to discuss the payment or the salaries of professional athletes or athletes in general. And that even includes, Olympic athletes. Do they really make any money being a professional athlete, like a runner, long jumper, and all that? And every 4 years, they compete in the biggest stage out there. And I'm sure they have meets in between the Olympics, but do they really make any money? People got to realize or ask the question, how much do pro athletes really make? I know we see all these contracts where guys making 50, 60 million, 10 million guaranteed and all that. And again, those with the big contracts like that, that's a small percentage, as I call the one percenters.
Mm-hmm.
So all the athletes in the major sports aren't making the big bucks like LeBron, Steph Curry, and some of the other folks out there.
Right.
But the average fan has to realize too, and we've had this conversation with friends, oh, he's making all that money. He can't afford to do this, donate that. But athletes, they pay taxes like everyone else, and they're in a higher tax bracket because of the amount of money most of them make. I shouldn't say most, but
they probably pay more taxes.
Exactly.
Than everybody else pays.
Exactly, because they're in a higher bracket. Whereas an athlete, say, with a $2 million contract, when all is said and done, paying FICA, state, and
FICA, who is FICA?
As we talked about, jocks tax, which we had on one episode, which the athletes pay. For example, if you're playing basketball in a certain state, you have to pay taxes for that state, whether it's on the road game or not. If it's not your home-based state, you still pay taxes for working in that state, and that's called a jocks tax. So they also have their bills like agents there for example, football or basketball, and I'm sure at other sports as well, they have to pay into the league's retirement fund and things of that nature. And then what do you do when the season's over and you're not getting that check anymore? Do you have anything on the side? Because, you got, like I said, agent fees, FICA, jock tax, state income tax, federal income tax. So and then also, if you're in a special program for conditioning or training, you have to pay your trainers to get you up to speed and shape prior to the season if you want to be the best athlete you can be for your particular sport. So there's a lot out there.
So I read something that said professional athletes take home 50 to 60% of their reported salaries.
Oh, wow. That's still pretty good.
Yeah, but
On the high end, the 60%.
yeah. But if you just say 50%, so like, what do they say LeBron makes? I read something that said one of his contracts 1 year was like 128 million.
Mm-hmm.
So really, after everything is said and done, he only got 64 million.
Yeah.
He only took home 64 million, which, I mean, to us, that still sounds like a lot of money.
Right.
But if I sit down and I write a contract and it says 128 million,
Right.
and then I get my check.
So somebody shortchange you.
And right, and it says 64 million, then I want to know where that's half.
Right. Right.
Like if that happened to the average American, they would be on their employer's desk raising Cain.
Oh, of course.
Like demanding to know, explain what happened. Where's my money?
Yeah, that'd be kind of hard to survive on. And it's all relative, because I'm sure he's making that type of money. He's living that type of life, to a certain extent, a large house and investments and everything else. Because even though these athletes make pretty good money, they're not immune to when investments go bad.
Yeah, I mean, like, just clearly they're not immune to the IRS or anything else. Like, it just doesn't matter. So they take home 50 to 60% of their reported incomes. The withholdings that come out of that is just like everybody else.
Right.
You have federal and state taxes. You have Social Security, which is FICA. You have the jock tax, which is unique to athletes only. Right. And that varies depending upon the states where they play, because in certain areas, it's more expensive than in other areas. Right. So for LeBron, he's in LA. Well, but LA, that's his home team.
Correct.
So he doesn't have to pay the jock tax there because California's already taken him on state tax.
Exactly.
And depending upon where he lives, he might be getting hit on a city and county tax too.
Right.
So... But if he's playing in Texas, or maybe not Texas because the state of Texas doesn't have a tax, but if he's
Illinois.
In Illinois, or if he's coming to DC or some of the New York, some of the other more expensive areas of the country, luckily they should all be happy Hawaii ain't got a team. Because if they had to fly to Hawaii to play the state of Hawaii, they'd be spending all their money.
Right.
So they should, there are certain things that really, when you look at the grand scheme of things, they should really be happy about this. But then this is the thing, their agent fees come out of their check automatically.
Oh,
so,
did not know that. And that's like about 40 to 50%.
Well, it all depends. So in the NFL, agent fees can vary from 1.5% to 3%.
Right.
And the league has a max set. So the NFL, the max is 3%. The NBA is 2 to 4%, the max being 4%.
Oh, okay.
Baseball, there is no max. So agent fees start at 3%. But there's no fixed max imposed by Major League Baseball. So all of that negotiation is done between the agent and the player.
Well, it was something I read recently that says for baseball, there's about a 4% on the low end.
They try to stay between 3 to 5%, but it's no max. Right. I mean, to me, that's the kicker.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if it was like a really good agent out there, he could say, no, I want 6%. And if you want that agent, then you're going to pay that 6%.
That's why Lamar Jackson did it smart. He was his own agent.
But that's why everybody's still talking about Lamar and his contract.
Right.
Because he didn't have to pay the agent fees. And he negotiated a contract that was $52 million for himself, a record amount. And he saved himself by negotiating his own contract. He saved himself $1.5 million in agent fees.
Right. Right.
So I still don't know. And I know I said this once before, if I was in football, I'd be calling Lamar going, okay, how'd you do it?
Right. What did you do
What
to
did
prep
you do?
yourself?
How did you do it? How
Yeah.
did you learn? You need to give a class, or you need to do a YouTube, or we need to come to your house, or you need to be sharing that information with the rest of us so that we can all save ourselves some money, or bring these agents and their fees maybe back
Right.
down under more
Right.
control. But that's the big thing that why they talk about, because I couldn't figure out why they hung on Lamar and his contract so much. But that's
Yeah.
why. It wasn't just that he negotiated his own contract. It was he saved himself a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Lamar, there was an article which had a breakdown, and this is from 2023 average. NFL salaries range from $750,000 to $52 million per year for Lamar Jackson. And on a minimum contract, he would take home about $382,000 to $467,000 after taxes and a 3% agent fee, which, of course, he's his own agent.
Mhm.
So on the high end, Lamar Jackson will likely take home about $28.6 million after taxes. And of course, he doesn't need to pay the 3% to an agent because he's his own agent, like I mentioned. While he received plenty of criticism for that, representing himself. And I'm sure that criticism came from a lot of agents. But like you stated before, he saved himself about $1.56 million, which is, in the scheme of things, at that level, a good saving.
Right. Now, I read about the Olympic athletes,
Mm-hmm.
and they said that they get paid by medal.
Right, right.
So for every gold medal, they get $37,500.
Now, does that change from, I guess, every Olympic, or is it set standard?
I think it goes up every
Okay.
year. It goes up, or every
4 years.
Olympics. Yeah, it goes
2
up.
years or 4 years.
So
4 years.
$37,500 for gold, $22,500 for silver, and $15,000 for bronze. And that's how they're going to be compensated for their performance during the Olympics.
How much you said for gold?
$37,500. Is that old?
Yeah, I think that's old
It's
because
gone up.
for the 2024 Olympics, those who win gold in each of the 48 track and field events in Paris will receive $50,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So every
And
year it goes up.
the relay teams will have to split that money.
So it's just $50,000 for gold, no matter whether it's team or individual.
Right.
Okay. But I also read where some of them receive stipends too. Did you see that?
I did not. And I know that a lot of those Olympic athletes have to pay their trainers and condition coaches themselves out of their pockets. That's why a lot of them try to get endorsements. And also, the International Boxing Association, who participates in the Olympics, the boxing, their folks, gold medalists receive $100,000, but it's coming from the IBA, which is the International Boxing Association.
I just think it's all relative.
It is.
When you look at these sports, these athletes, they're putting their bodies through a lot for entertainment purposes only.
And it's short-lived.
Right.
Depending on the sport.
Yeah. Well, but, basketball didn't used to be as physical as it is now.
Right.
I mean, they're getting real physical out there. Football just seems to be getting worse.
Yeah. Well, I think for football, it's a little bit, it's not as bad as in the past because there been so many issues and lawsuits concerning like the concussion protocol and all that, where if you remember back in the day when football players played, and when I say back in the day, I'm talking about 70s, maybe even the 80s, guys used to play with broken bones. They'll get a cast on or something.
Yeah.
Now, a guy get a hangnail, he's out for...
Well, I guess, my point is that for me, whatever they're getting paid, they're earning it.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's for entertainment purposes only.
Right.
And they're putting their bodies and their mental health, and they're putting themselves through a lot of stuff
Right.
for really, they ain't saving lives. They ain't doing, this ain't our military. We talking about people playing sports.
Right. And just so everybody realizes,
Our military probably should be getting the money that these sports people are getting.
Yeah.
Shout out to our military. But
we also, and I also understand that for football, one hit and could be the end of your career or life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. I mean, like the protocols that they have put in place, that the NFL and the teams have put in place are better, but the outcomes are still just as bad as they've ever been if somebody gets hurt.
Right.
I mean, that hasn't changed.
Right.
They put these protocols in place to protect the organization.
Oh, yeah.
They're not trying to protect the individual.
Right.
It's still a money-making business.
That's all.
For entertainment purposes only.
Right.
So, and at the risk of all of these young people and their families and their ability to take care of their families and their livelihood and everything else. And so that's the part that these athletes need to be aware of, and they need to look at these things when they're going in to write these contracts. And they really need to have an exit strategy. When you start playing sports, you need to go into this with an exit strategy, with a plan B, C, and D, just in case. Because, I don't know how many times we've heard the NFL stands for not for long,
Right.
And so if you know that, then you should definitely have another way to make ends meet if that's not going to work out for you.
Right.
And then it's like you said, not every player is, I don't even think it's 1%. It's probably like 0.5% in those top tier. Because I was reading somewhere else where it said like the XFL players, they only make $60,000 a year.
$60,000, yeah.
And then the NBA
G League,
yep,
$40,000.
$40,000 a year.
Yeah.
So
you got basically
they need a second job.
That's what I was just going to say. You got to have a second job.
Exactly.
It's like, you working at McDonald's? Didn't I just see you play last night?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So that, and that's just crazy. So yeah, it seems like a lot of money because all we hear is that contract number.
Right.
But nobody's ever broken down all that goes into that contract number.
Right.
And that's what we're hoping to give you all a little insight into what goes into that and what all they have to do with that money.
And also, too, you hear a lot about guaranteed contracts, but as I was doing some research, there's always fine print on that guaranteed money.
Mm-hmm.
If you violate certain league protocol, that guaranteed money can go away, and people don't realize that. They just think, oh, he's guaranteed $28 million, so they're going to give that to him up front. No, it doesn't work that way. So do your research and don't be so quick to judge these athletes on making these large amounts of money, which only a small handful of them actually do. Because if you think about it, if you have a $2 million contract, by the time you get paid, you might take home $100,000, which, hell, we were doing that in our day-to-day jobs.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah. But on the other side of things, for some sports, if you're only playing 4 months out of the year and bringing home decent money, you got to be saving and investing, because what do you do out of the rest of the 6 months out of the year?
Yeah.
To survive. Sort of, it reminds me of like teachers. Teachers get paid during school year, and I think they can opt to get their
they can have it stretched out
a whole year. But most of them try to take it during the school year because teachers, be honestly, don't get paid that much money for what they do. And a lot of them come out of their pockets to help the students. But the same thing with athletes. During the course of their playing, they get paid, and hopefully they have endorsements that can sort of supplement their income during the off season, but most don't. Some have shoe contracts where the companies provide them some shoes and some small stipend, but nothing to the extreme like LeBron, Michael Jordan, and some of the other players that played in the league and that are playing in the league, whether it's football, baseball, or basketball. So.
One thing that I also saw was that a lot of the highest paid athletes are in the world are not Americans.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like the...
And Saudi is the one that's Dubai,
the
rather.
PIF.
They're the ones that are paying these contracts.
It's
outrageous.
the PIF, the Saudi Arabia PIF, the Public Investment Fund.
Yeah.
That is backing, Cristiano Ronaldo is the soccer player.
Right.
He's the highest paid athlete in the world.
I saw that.
And he's making $264 million. And that's because the Saudi Arabia is backing. And then there's a golfer. Oh, he was number 2. John Rahm.
Yeah, Rahm. He's part of that LIV.
Is the LIV is the golf tournament that the PIF backs. So as the Saudis branch into more sports-related activities, we could see that number go up.
Because there are a lot of athletes in professional sports jumping to follow the money.
Yep.
So how do we compete with that?
Right. One thing that was interesting, no women in this discussion of the highest paid athletes.
Because
no women.
Because they're not. We know that.
Exactly.
Well, Caitlin Clark is probably one of the first, if not the first, to get the monies that she's receiving now. Because I never heard any other female in any other sport to receive monies like that. Because I know in tennis, as we discussed, Serena had an issue with the Wimbledon.
Right. She had to write them. She had to get on them to.
And they changed it.
To pay her. But they were saying a lot of that's going to change with time because of Caitlin Clark is just starting her career. Serena has retired because had she stayed in tennis, she probably would have definitely been in the conversation. And then they said Naomi Osaka, she's been out on maternity leave.
Oh,
and so
did not know that.
Yeah, so as she decides whether or not she's coming back to tennis, she could definitely be in that discussion.
Right.
Coco Gauff could be a player as she continues her pursuit of the Grand Slam and things like that. So let's hope that as we continue to have these discussions, we eventually see some women in the discussion of the highest paid athletes out there. One of the disappointing things that I found talking about it was what they paying the Paralympic athletes. Because they're not making $50,000 per gold medal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think they make the same amount of money as the regular Olympics. Now, I think my numbers are old, but it's a significantly different amount of money.
Gotcha.
Less than what the regular Olympians make. And I was disappointed to see that. So that's worth some more research, and I'll get those numbers for you all for next time.
Okay.
Just to verify that. But
I tell you,
if anything, they should make more money because they are competing with a disability.
Right.
Or some kind of disadvantage that they've overcome. So a challenge. They're competing with a physical challenge. So that's the way to say it properly. So I thought that's worth another look. So I'm gonna follow up on that, and I'll let you all know what they get paid. But it's an interesting topic. It's not always what you think it is.
Right. Well, it was funny because I read an article out of the USA Today. It says the title caption on it was, "What's financial toll for Team USA Olympians? We asked athletes how they make ends meet." This was an article written by Michelle Martinelli, It was published July 18th, 2024. And one individual that they interviewed said they did babysitting and worked as a caregiver for adults with dementia and bussing tables at an Iowa City restaurant. And that was from Olympian Brittany Brown. And of course, still found time to do her major job, which is run track. But, that is crazy that you have to do all those things just to survive and do what you need to do. But even with the track and field, the only ones that get the major notoriety are the top ones. What was the guy's name who's supposed to be the fastest guy? The male runner?
Noah Lyles?
Yes. So the rest of them, the participants, are scraping to get by. Now, I want to make sure everybody understand, we're just talking about USA athletes when we talk professional sports, as well as track and field and Olympics and all that. I'm not sure what the other countries pay their athletes, if they pay them at all, or do they provide support from a training perspective where the athletes don't have to come out of their own pocket. Maybe we'll do a little bit more research into that and compare down the road. But this is strictly dealing with U.S. athletes. Now, with that said, I do recall, and I can't remember the article, this was years ago. I mean, when we talking, and this is NBA, the Yao Ming, when he was playing basketball, it was my understanding, an article I read, that he was giving the Chinese government actual money from his contract. And I don't know if that was for them allowing him to play and earn a living in the U.S. I don't know. But, you just don't know what these other countries are doing and providing or not providing for their athletes. Well, Darcy, this topic, we can, as you know, go on and on.
Yeah, it was interesting.
It is. And when the Olympics started, it'd be kind of interesting to see what comes out of it, because, there are going to be articles about endorsements, about costs and everything else. Again, this Olympics supposed to be, the overall budget was supposed to be, I think, about $4 million less than the previous Olympics. But how much is that really truly passed on to the athletes? Don't know.
So, okay, this is what I found. It says the Paralympics athletes, they will receive the $37,500 for a gold, $22,500 for a bronze, and $15,000 for...
And we're talking thousands, correct?
I'm sorry, $22,500 for silver and $15,000 for bronze.
And we're talking thousands.
Thousands, yes. 37,500. So it's not a lot less, but it's still less. Like, why,
right.
if you give a regular Olympian 50,000, why wouldn't you give the Paralympic
right
50,000?
Right.
I mean, it should be the same.
Right. Well, it's funny because I'm sure they're taking the same approach that they took in the WNBA when they were talking about paying them, saying that they don't have the fan base or making the monies like an NBA team and all that. But it has changed.
Yeah, it has changed.
There have been sellout arenas for WNBA, so the price of pay should go up. Like we had talked about the Aces from Las Vegas, that city has offered to provide $100,000 to each player as a stipend, which I thought was great. And as you had mentioned before, the transportation for the WNBA women has changed. They don't have to fly coach anymore. They get a private plane, so things are changing. You would think in 2024, it'll be a little bit more advanced, but as we see.
The weird part is other countries pay their Paralympians a lot more than the United States. So like they were saying, gold medal winners from Malaysia earn $236,000.
Oh, wow. In this Paralympics?
In the Paralympics.
Wow.
Winners from Kazakhstan, they'll make $250,000.
Wow.
So I don't know. That's weird. Like
is.
that's weird. I don't know. That's a whole nother show.
Well, maybe it's an incentive because those countries don't usually win gold medals. And maybe this is incentive to get them to. So it's not like they're shelling out a lot of money for gold medals.
Exactly.
And it's too, it depends on the sport as well. Some countries are better in certain sports than others.
Right. So it's just interesting.
It is. Well, that concludes our show for today. If you have any comments, questions, or just want to say hey to us, you can reach us at memywifeandsports@yahoo.com. memywifeandsports@yahoo.com. And also you can follow us on our Facebook page, Instagram. And what am I missing here?
That's it.
Okay. All right. Any final words, Miss Darcy?
Go USA.
All right. You guys have a blessed day.
And remember, your mate is a reflection of you.